All right, so have you ever stopped to think about how much data is flying around us every single second?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's almost impossible to even wrap your head around it, right?
Yeah, and then on top of that, we're supposed to somehow protect all of it from,
Hmm.
well, the bad guys.
Cybersecurity threats.
Right.
And those are getting more and more sophisticated every day.
Exactly. So today we're going to do a deep dive into a topic that's really, really important for anyone who cares about cybersecurity.
Network detection and response, or NDR as it's more commonly known.
Okay, so NDR. This
Yeah.
is one of those tools that can kind of be a game changer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In a world where, like you said, data is just exploding, NDR helps us cut through all that noise and actually see what's really going on.
So it's like having a superpowered security guard constantly watching your network.
Yeah, pretty much. It's constantly monitoring, analyzing, and then responding to threats before they can even really cause any damage.
All right, so I get that it's powerful, but how would you describe it simply? What is NDR?
In a nutshell, it's a security solution that gives you complete visibility into your network traffic, right? It
Mhm.
can detect threats in real time and then helps you analyze any suspicious activity.
Okay, so it's seeing everything that's happening on the network.
Exactly. And not just seeing it, but understanding it.
Okay, so how does it actually work?
Well, it's a three-step process: detection, investigation, and then finally response.
Makes sense. Start with seeing the problem, then figuring it out, and then dealing with it.
Right. So first, NDR has to gather data. It does this from all across your network.
So we're talking servers, devices, cloud services, the whole shebang.
Yeah, anything and everything that's connected. It's setting up these virtual sensors everywhere to pick up on even the smallest anomalies.
Okay, so it's gathering all this info, but how does it know what to look for?
That's where the real brains of NDR come in.
Yeah.
It uses artificial intelligence and machine learning.
We hear a lot about AI these days.
Yeah, it's everywhere. But with NDR, the AI is analyzing that data, looking for patterns that might indicate a threat. It's trained to recognize known attack methods.
These are the TTPs, right?
Yeah, the tactics, techniques, and procedures. But it also looks for, let me think. Yes, specific indicators of compromise.
IOCs, I've
Uh,
heard of those. Those are like red flags, right?
Exactly. Think of it like this. Let's say you suddenly see a massive spike in data leaving your network at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, that sounds pretty suspicious.
Exactly. That could be an IOC, a sign that something fishy is going on.
Okay, so it's like NDR is playing detective looking for clues and fingerprints at a crime scene.
I like that analogy.
But what happens when NDR finds something suspicious?
Well, it doesn't just sound the alarm, it actually starts investigating right away.
Oh, wow. So it's giving my security team real-time insights.
Precisely. NDR helps determine if it's a known threat, like something using familiar tactics, or if it's something completely new.
Which would be an unknown known, as you folks call it.
Yeah, that's the scary stuff.
Because how do you defend against something you don't even know exists?
Well, it's a challenge, but NDR is still useful in those situations.
How so?
Even if it doesn't fit a known pattern, it can still flag unusual activity.
So it's like a motion sensor going off, even if you can't see the intruder.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've talked about detection and investigation. What about the response part?
This is where NDR goes from being helpful to absolutely essential. It can actually automate responses to certain threats.
Automatically respond. How does it do that?
Well, it uses this technology called SO.
That's security orchestration, automation, and response for anyone who's keeping score at home.
That's right. SOR basically lets you set up these pre-programmed actions. Like, for example, let's say NDR detects malware spreading through the network.
Uh-oh, that's never good.
No, it's not. But with SOR, NDR can automatically isolate the infected devices and block the malicious traffic.
Wow. So it's doing the work of an entire security team, in a way.
Yeah, it really takes a lot of the pressure off security teams.
So we've talked about how it catches bad guys, but what are some of the other benefits of NDR?
Well, you mentioned visibility earlier, and that's one of the biggest advantages. It gives you this complete 360-degree view of your network.
So I can see all the activity across all devices.
Right. And that helps you identify blind spots and potential vulnerabilities you might have missed otherwise. Think of it like having a traffic camera that can see every single car on a busy highway.
Okay, I can see how that would be useful, but wouldn't all this monitoring and analysis just create even more data for security teams to deal with?
That's a valid concern, right? But that's where NDR's effectiveness comes in. Because it uses machine learning and AI, it can filter out all the noise and just prioritize the real threats.
So security teams aren't overwhelmed with false alarms.
Exactly. It's like having a guide who points you directly to the most important clues.
Makes sense. It focuses resources where they're needed most. What about control? How does NDR help with that?
NDR helps organizations establish really clear boundaries and rules for network behavior.
So if something deviates from the norm, even if it's not a known attack, NDR can flag it.
That's right. It can alert you if, let's say, an employee is trying to access sensitive data they shouldn't have access to.
So it's looking for anything out of the ordinary.
Yeah, and that gives organizations more control over their security posture overall.
NDR seems pretty flexible.
Mhm.
What are some of the ways companies can implement it?
Well, there are several different deployment options. Some organizations go with an on-premise solution.
And so they're managing everything on their own servers.
Yeah, exactly. Others prefer a cloud-based solution, which is often simpler to set up and scale.
The cloud makes things easier, for sure.
And then there are hybrid approaches, which kind of combine the best of both worlds.
So to wrap up here, NDR is basically like a superpowered security system that's constantly watching, analyzing, and then even responding to threats in real time.
Right. It gives organizations that deep visibility we've been talking about, helps them respond to threats much more effectively, and even automates some of those more tedious security tasks.
Definitely sounds like a game changer for cybersecurity.
Absolutely. But it does make you think, right? If NDR is so effective, why isn't everyone using it? What are some of the potential downsides or maybe even challenges to think about? I'll leave you with that.
That's a great question. Something for everyone out there to ponder as they think about how NDR could fit into their own cybersecurity strategy. Thanks for joining us today.
Of course. It was my pleasure.